Hi, this is a quick overview of the Breville Precision Brewer Thermal Coffee Maker. This is an interesting idea behind a coffee maker because it's not your typical. This thing is designed to appeal to the pour over group, the group who makes a single cup at a time under a specified weight of coffee and water. I'll explain a little more of that, but we're watching one brew right now, but not in the official capacity that it can be. We had to order a special adapter for that. So, and this is another example. So I'm just showing you real quickly the ways we could drip into this thing. Now that this is where this coffee maker is unique. Whatever water you put in to it is the water that's going to come out. So they suggest that you measure your water in such a way that the container that it's going to go into is capable of holding it. So if you take a cup and you fill it with water, you put that water, that's how much coffee you're going to want. You put that water into the reservoir, and that's what's going to come out. You know, that cup can hold it. Now, this is a mini brew over moment here where I just wanted to see how it worked, where the coffee dripped into the carafe that I have for my pour over coffee. And I want to go over some of the dial settings with you because it'll make a lot more sense. Notice that there is a lot of steam that comes out of the top of this thing, and that top part, I'll move the camera up there and I'll remind you when we're looking at it, doesn't move at all. Okay, so where the filter is. Now it's showing here that we're on the gold standard, which is the gold standard ratio of coffee is usually about 1 parts coffee to 17 parts water. Could be 116 or 115, usually around there. So I gave it a whirl to see how it did, and it kind of knew what it was doing. It took a minute and let it fill up and bloom, what they call bloom, where you wet the grounds initially and they swell to release the carbon dioxide. And all the water's gone, as you can see. Now it's timing how long I've let it sit, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. So, you take it out, you pour your coffee, and it looks really good. The coffee actually did come out pretty good. Now, I had some issue with the temperature of the water. It didn't seem very hot. You can adjust that. It just didn't seem that my adjustments were helping much. Now, I'm at very high altitude, so I have to be careful about what I know and what I say about boiling water. I can't do an egg out here. Now, there's a little twist thing in here that shows the shower head. And once you get the adapter, you can pull this shower head out, and you're going to replace it with the brew adapter that this thing costs $40. And what I didn't like about this coffee maker is that this thing costs $40 and it's required if you want a pour over effect on the coffee, something that they say is included, like pour over is one of the options on the menu, but they don't give you this adapter to actually do a real true pour over. I guess that's okay. They don't have to, but why wouldn't you just do that and include it so then it ends the confusion? They do have a different silicone shower head, so it's a little narrower to help you with the bloom. And you're basically going to put it up there and screw it back into place. It's very, very intuitive in that sense. There aren't a lot of great directions, but doing this part, I'm not looking because I have the camera down there looking, but it's pretty easy. And we'll just move on. Okay, so I've got it. It's easy to screw in. Later, when I have two hands, I'm going to really tighten that because it can tend to drip. Now, this is the base that you're going to put into. I'll show you. You'll put it on that first level, and these directions explain that to you. What we're trying to do is make it possible to use that V-shaped. They call them Mahario V60s, or similar shapes to that, like the wave, Kalika wave will also work. If you don't know what those words mean, don't worry about it. If you do know, then you're a pour over person. So you put that little adapter there on the ledge. You're going to put the red filter holder, the Hario V60 in this case, into it, and then you have to move that thermos. You're not going to be using that at all, the carafe. So that sits there. It's wide enough that it's going to handle the red filter. It does not lock on. It just covers that perfectly. And then you're going to put the red filter in. I'll show you what that looks like. The base that held the silicone shower head is used to elevate the cup that you put under it. Okay. So I'm going to measure out my coffee. This is just good for people who are interested in how pour over people do it. there's the Hario that I use, and I also use the Kalika, so that there's a bunch of different ones you can use, and that's the look. Okay, so that carafe, that pitcher will go on top of the brick. Now I come over to my scale, and I'm going to weigh out 360 grams of water. I know grams is by weight, but that's how we do it. It's pretty much equal to milliliters. Okay, so we're going to dump that water into the reservoir, and this reservoir knows if the water is less than a couple of cups, and it'll show you here. See that line that says max? As long as your water is under that line, the coffee maker knows that it's going to be a pour over. It's going to be a single cup, and so it's going to act accordingly. Now, I have my coffee pre-measured at 22 grams. I have the water at 360. So that's a 1 to 16 ratio, is what they would call a 1 to 16 ratio on the golden coffee recipe. Now, because I'm doing a pour over, I want to turn on the machine, and I want to just select my brew. And when you do that and you press in there, you see the bottom one is called pour over, and that says off. You want to make sure to turn that on. Okay, and then basically you're going to hit go, and it'll tell you, make sure the adapter's there. There's the adapter, and we be ready to go. So we'll let it do its thing. But I want to show you first of all the process. Okay, so this takes a minute, and then it's going to say blooming, and that means it's going to wet those grounds and let them swell. So you can see that this thing is made for, it's heating the water. There's blooming. See, there it is. Okay, I'll move forward. You can see that in the blooming process, it's just gently wetting the ground so that all the grounds can be wet. You tell it how many, like I say 60 grams of water, or just to wet it for 30 seconds. So once it does this little piece here, it's going to count down the bloom process and just let the coffee decarbon dioxide itself. Unfortunately, you don't get to see it. You just sort of have to trust it's going on. Now, I kept the camera at this angle so I could see how the water was doing, and so far so good. And then you can see that it does drip out. Now, this is considered to be the sweeter part of the coffee, and if you do this part right, the coffee should be sweet. If you got it imbalanced, then you got to mess with it. You got to come back and change the ground, and these things should be timed. If you're doing it by hand, you would time this to make sure that the entire process lasted within a 3-minute period of time. Okay, so it's going to notice that the bloom is still counting down, and we don't have to watch it. Okay, so I moved it to the end of the line where it is just done brewing. It did drip a little on the outside edge at the top that I want to check and make sure that I have the shower head in good. So it did make a little bit of a mess, not a ton, obviously, but I wanted you to see the color of the coffee. It looks really black. Here it isn't. I'm going to get to a piece of sunshine so you can see the golden brown color of it. It actually came out to be a really good cup of coffee. Now, it wasn't extremely hot, and I had the temperature set for 201 degrees Fahrenheit, and that should be, hot to the touch, but it isn't. So I got to play with that, see what we can do to make that a little hotter. I'm just going to show you a brief look at the menu where you can do fast, where it just comes through like a drip coffee maker, gold, which would be the gold standard of 1 to 17 ratio of coffee. And then you have your own My Brew, which is you can do the brew temperature there. You can do the flow rate. You can do pour over on or off. If you turn it off, there is you don't need a special adapter to have the coffee flow through. Okay, I think it's good. I think it could use some improvement. It is a little loud, and I have issue with that water not being too hot. Again, I'm going to play with that and can follow up with you.